Hi everyone. Today we're going to look at Leica R6. This is a single lens reflex or SLR camera by Leica produced between 1988 and 1992. This particular specimen is a later upgrade from R6 called R6.2. This one was produced from 1992 to 1997. Later on I'll describe to you all the differences. Leica R series started with R3 and went all the way to R9. All the other Leica R series cameras are SLRs and they have various levels of automation. But Leica R6 might seem like a step backward because it's fully mechanical and has no automation whatsoever. But that's quite common to the practice of Leica. Leica likes fully mechanical cameras. Leica R6 and 6.2 are visually almost identical. There are a few very small differences which I'll take you through. They're both about 620 grams. If you want to have a comparison with film cameras, it's almost exactly the same weight as a Canon A1, but it's about 115 grams heavier than an Olympus OM1. So it's a bit heavy, but it feels great in the hand. It feels like a solid professional camera that it is. The film winding lever is in the usual location and feels great. Very smooth. The shutter release button is in the middle here and it has the thread for the cable release. One of the first things that users will notice is that the shutter release button is almost flush with the top of this ring. You can see it's almost flush. Not only that, when you want to press the button, you have to press it a long way down. It looks like your finger is going to disappear into that hole. It has a two-step press. First, to activate the light meter, and then another one to take the picture. So that feels a little bit unusual, but nothing to complain about really. It looks good this way. The next thing you see is this ring, which is the shutter speed selector. As I mentioned, it's a fully mechanical camera. Now, one difference between this specimen, 6.2 versus 6, is that this goes to 1/2000th of a second shutter speed, whereas 6 has only 1/1000th of a second. It goes all the way to full 1 second and B and X. The default flash sync is 1/100th of a second. It also has TTL flash. Over in the front, there's a ring that you can twist around by the press of a button in the middle of it. The default position on the left is light meter off, no battery being used. If you turn it one step to the right, it shows a little red circle, and that indicates selective metering. That's in Leica's jargon, if you like. You might call it spot metering. The next step shows a big rectangle. That means averaging of the light over the whole frame. This symbol here indicates the location of the film plane. What for? Who knows? In the middle we have a hot shoe, and this should work with a wide variety of flashes, and many of them will work with the TTL. On the left side, we have the ISO selector button here. You press that with one finger while you turn this knob, and that selects the ISO for you. It's a little bit fiddly, but I'll do it for you. So press this and twist this, and you will read ISO at the bottom, DIN at the top. So on this occasion, I'll put it on 160 for my favorite Portra 160. On the left side of the same dial, there's another little window here with 0 shown in the middle of it. That is for exposure compensation. To change that, you have to press this button, presumably with your right hand, and then turn this knob left or right. Several stops are available, plus and minus for exposure compensation. A bit of an awkward action, but with practice you might even be able to do it with one hand. I can't do it. Anyway, this is completely unnecessary because this is a totally mechanical camera. It's fully manual. So if you want to expose more or less, you just turn your aperture ring or shutter ring 1 or 2 stops up or down. So what's the problem? You don't really need that, so don't worry about that. Another dual action for this ISO button is the battery check. If you press and hold this for 5 seconds at least, while this is in one of the exposure modes, then a light over there should come on. So that means battery is perfect. One little thing that's the difference between this and the 6 model is the exposure counter, which at the moment shows number 12. It has a magnification, so it's easier to read. It's almost like the old Rolex watches with a little magnifier. At the back, we have a little window that shows you the film is inside. Here, we have a rotating knob that has a shutter over the viewfinder. You can see an arrow appears. That means it's shut. Open it up and good to go. This is a little ring for diopter adjustment. Don't be confused by it because it looks like it rotates freely. That's not how it works. You have to pull it out, okay? And then you twist it to the right level for your eyes, and then you push it back. That locks it in. On the right hand side, there's a very convenient grip that makes it easy to hold. That is quite different to all Japanese cameras of the time that didn't have this kind of ergonomic feature on the back. Some of them had a grip in the front, like say Canon A1 and so on, but this one has a grip on the back. This camera body, by the way, is die-cast aluminium, very solid metal, and it's based on the partnership with Minolta. So it's based on Minolta XD7. Most Leica R series up to R7 are based on that Minolta camera, which is a good thing because the Minolta cameras were terrific mechanically. On the front, of course, we have the lens, which I'll take you through in a minute. On the left side, we have the mirror release knob. You press that and you twist the lens to the left. As you would expect, the lens comes out. Next to the release button, you have this large lever, which is quite unusual. And that is for depth of field preview. Warning, in a lot of the old Leica R series, this gets stuck. It has a very complicated mechanism which has rods and gears and so on that come down from there at 90 degrees turn and all the way around to attach to the mechanism for depth of field preview. That gets stuck after a while. And in fact, this one is slightly stuck. It needs a bit of lubrication there in that junction over there. And also, for those of you who are interested, also there is a tiny hole here in which you can see some gears, one tiny drop of oil in there as well, and then that should loosen it up. Very careful not to touch anything else, especially the mirror mechanism. On the right hand side, also we have this button, which is not mechanical, it is a self-timer. Unlike many cameras of its time, it is not one of those that goes bzzz mechanically and takes the picture. This one rotates 30 degrees clockwise, then acts electromechanically on the shutter. That's another thing that uses a battery, by the way. It's highly underappreciated. That's another use of the battery. And it doesn't act on pressing the shutter button. It is the half press that does the job. So when you do the half press, it begins to do the countdown. it counts 9 seconds also, not the usual 10 or 12. Another button that can be used for self-timer release, if I were to turn this again, is the middle button, which is to turn this knob. That also acts as a shutter release for the timer. Very strange feature, but there it is. On the left hand side, there is one slider here. It has 2 positions. In the down position, it turns on the backlighting inside the viewfinder. So if it's dark, you can see aperture and exposure quite clearly. But how do you see that? Let me show you here. For the aperture, the camera looks at the actual aperture ring of the lens, which is here. Those exact numbers are seen inside the viewfinder. How? Because there's something like a tiny little lens or a camera here that looks at that number and reflects it off the prism into your eye. That's how it works. This also gets activated when you half press the shutter button, and it lights up these numbers in the dark. So they come out red at night because that light is red. There's light inside of that. In addition to being a lens, it's a light as well. This also lights up. Why? No idea. But when the self-timer works, then this light flashes before taking the picture. On the left side, we also have a flash PC sync connection there in case you want to use a cable with a remote flash. What if you want to use a cable release? You screw one of these into that hole over there, and that allows you to use a cable release. What about mirror lockup? Let me show you. Take the lens off. To lock up the mirror, there are no buttons or levers or anything, except there is another hole over here similar to this hole over there. So you need another cable release to go into this. So you need yet another one of these to go into that hole. So now you have cable releases everywhere. You have your little spaghetti, and therefore when you press this, you achieve the mirror lockup. Then when you press this, of course you have to wind the lever, then you take the picture. Well, if you thought this arrangement was a bit odd, there it is. Leica designers, what were you thinking? Couldn't you just give us a button, a knob, like every other camera? No, of course not. So there it is. Have several of these cable releases ready. And you need 2 of them, not just one. Because why would you need to lock up the mirror? To avoid vibration. Also to avoid vibration, you have to have a cable release to avoid this vibration. So you need 2 of those every time. Got the logic? Yeah, I didn't either. This is the battery chamber over here that thankfully takes 2 very common LR44 or SR44 batteries. This is the contact for a motor winder, and this is a mechanical contact for the motor winder. This is the connection for the tripod, and this is the rewind button. This particular specimen is completely new. It has had 1 roll of film put through it only for this review film test. In fact, the plastic at the bottom of it has not been removed. So in fact, it's not possible to put it on a tripod because the plastic has not been removed. So I'm not going to remove it. It's as new condition. This lens didn't come with this camera. This lens was borrowed from our Leica R8, which is a fantastic camera, beautiful design. So what is this? It is the Vario Elma, is a zoom lens. f1.4, ranges from 35 to 70 millimeters. It's a fantastic lens. It has been tested on different Leica cameras in different conditions, and it performs extremely well. Very good value for money. It gives you that range, it gives you the Leica quality, and it looks fantastic too. To top it off, this hood comes out and goes back the other way and keeps it very compact. And the cover also goes back. Nice and compact for travel, right? So that's how that works. Beautiful lens, highly recommended. Leica SLR cameras, similar to this, started with Leicaflex 1964. Then went on to Leicaflex SL, then SL2. These were Leica's own designs, not based on Minolta. Then Leica went to R3, which was a more traditional looking SLR, and then R4, which is this body shape based on Minolta XD7, then R5, and then 6, 6.2, and 7. After this, Leica switched to a different body shape, R8 and R9. And R9 was the last film SLR camera by Leica. This one is the last film SLR mechanical camera by Leica. That's why it's here. Okay, back to the lenses. These lenses are distinguished by the way the contact between the lens and the camera body works, and that is through the contacts called cams. So you have Leica 1-cam lenses. They're generally meant for Leicaflex cameras. And then you have 2-cam lenses, which have 2 sloped cams. That's for Leicaflex SL and SL2 only, with TTL metering. And then you have 3 cams. These are for the R series. So that's where we are, R series. R series started with R3. There's no R2 and R1. R3 is the first one with 3 cams. Leica doesn't want you to use earlier lenses unless they're modified specifically. So in relation to modification, just forget it. After that, you have lenses called R only, which means that they're not backward compatible. It's only for the R series, and they have a stepped so-called R cam. After that, you have the ROM lenses, which work with all series all the way to 8 and 9. It has the full features only for R8 and R9, but it will be backward compatible, so it works with, say, this body. So if you want to be safe, get R only lenses or ROM lenses. All the rest of them will be a bit of an investment risk. Let's put it that way. In case you have other Leicas, especially M series, for example, film cameras and so on, the same lenses, R lenses like this one, can also be used on those. Let me demonstrate. Let's say you want to use it on this beautiful Leica M6. Take this lens out. We need an adapter. You can get an adapter such as this one, which is this adapter from R to M. Align the dot, and now it has the other button for the lens. Align the dot, and now you have a beautiful R zoom lens on an M6. Doesn't that look terrific? Thank you for the guest appearance. We'll do another video on this one very shortly. Let's open it up and see what's inside. For a change, Leica has adopted the proper Japanese way of opening the camera back because it comes from a Minolta heritage. Just lift that up and this opens with a conventional hinge, none of those crazy bottom of the camera feeds and so on that Leica burdened us with for decades. The cartridge goes over here, you push it across and put it over here. The shutter, thankfully, is a metal shutter, vertically traveling and very high quality, very light, improvement on all those flimsy cloth shutters of previous generations of Leica. So no surprises inside. By the way, there's no DX reading over there. ISO has to be set manually. The ISO range in this camera goes from 8 to 6400. It is a huge range for a film camera. Let's look at handling. This camera handles absolutely beautifully. It has just enough weight to hold steady, take a picture and feel great about it. The viewfinder, for a Leica that is very nice, very bright, very clear. After decades of tiny Leica viewfinders, this comes as a pleasure. Inside, what you see is a split image in the middle, surrounded by micro prism. The combined micro prism and split image area, which is the red area, is what its spot metering, or selective metering as it's called, is measuring. The full frame is what Leica calls full held integral mode. Let's call it the average metering. That's the second mode for metering. Here you see the ring that indicates perfectly good exposure. This means overexposed, that means underexposed. This means the aperture ring has to be turned left. That means the top of the ring to the left. That is counterclockwise. It means the top of the ring to the right until this one is solid red. This rectangle means that you're in the average metering mode. This is the spot metering mode. This is the flash ready. This shows shutter speed. It's a ring inside of that glows in red if you turn the light on. This is actually a picture of the actual aperture ring, and also it glows red if you turn the light on. The magnification through this is a respectable 0.8, and the view that you see is 92% of the actual view. Not quite 100% like many Nikon cameras, but respectable. These come in both chrome, and they also come in black. This is another one. It is a variant of this Leica, and this particular model is the Olympic Special 1992. Let's do another comparison. In terms of features, it is very similar to Japanese cameras such as this one. Almost weight and size. Nicormat EL has all exactly the same features, same size, same thing. But in terms of quality and prestige and so on, it's a bit closer to this Nikon FM2. This is a particular one, FM2N. So they have almost the same features. In fact, even the light meter has the same mechanism. It has a dot in the middle, left arrow, right arrow. This one has dot in the middle, plus and minus. So they work in the same sort of manner. However, look at the styling of which direction Leica was gradually going. This still has the features of vintage kind of original Nikon style pentaprism, angular, and it is not particularly aerodynamic, but Leica began to go in the direction of smoother surfaces such as this, and this became more and more pronounced. This came out in the R4 series. Even the R3 was more like that. In R4 it went into these smooth shapes, and surely somebody liked it so much that by the time they got to R8 and R9, it was then super smooth. You can see, almost aerodynamic. So this gets lowered, pentaprism gets lowered and lowered and smoother, no angular changes of plane until it's all fully smooth. Now this is a different beast, of course. This is a Leica R8, an unloved, criminally unloved Leica, but is fantastic. if you don't mind all the electronics in it, if you get a perfect model, you should buy one right now at my instruction. So the last fully mechanical Leica R series takes fantastic lenses which are still available today. Both the body and the lens are the most affordable Leicas you can buy today in the 2020s. If you don't buy one, you will regret it in 4 years' time when the price is double. Since this is an honest review, let's look at this. This Olympus OM1 is smaller, lighter, has all the same features, fully mechanical, plus light meter, close enough, right? Fantastic lenses, everything you want. So was this a contemporary of that? No. Believe it or not, this is 20 years after that. 1972, 1992. Unbelievable. So 20 years later, Leica rediscovers the beauty of fully mechanical cameras and produces something that Olympus created 20 years earlier. Smaller, lighter, high quality. So it needs to be said that for some things, Leica has been behind the Japanese manufacturers by a long shot. But when they did produce it, they produced the beauty. If you have any questions about this, please let me know. If you want to correct any of the details, please do. I've been showing some of the pictures taken by this very camera as I've been going through, but I'll show you a few more at the end.